The alarm screens flashed red across the bridge of the Crithian warship Endless Conquest. Commander Jalrix lifted his scaled head from the tactical display, his three eyes narrowing at the sudden interruption. His crew had been patrolling this sector for 6 cycles now, and nothing ever happened out here in the border regions. Nothing interesting anyway. Report, he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 200 years of military service. Sensor Officer Maltic tapped frantically at her console, her movements quick and nervous. Commander, we have an unknown contact. It appeared 17 units from our position, near the Varith Nebula's edge. Jalrix moved to her station, his boots heavy on the metal deck. Pirates again? Or debris from the old war? Neither, sir. Maltic's voice wavered. The signature is unlike anything in our database. Its reading is solid one moment, then vanishing the next. Our sensors cannot maintain a lock. This caught Jalrix's attention. The Crithian Empire had ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Their sensor technology could track a single fighter across 5 star systems. Nothing escaped their detection nets. Nothing. Show me, he ordered. The main view screen shifted, displaying the dark purple clouds of the nebula. At first Jalrix saw nothing. Then for just a moment something appeared. A vessel, sleek and small, its hull reflecting light in strange ways. Then it was gone again, as if it had never existed. By the ancestors, Jalrix whispered. What is that thing? The communications officer, a young male named Sorval, spoke up. Sir, should we attempt contact? Send standard hails on all frequencies. Trade languages, diplomatic codes, even the old tongue. Let's see if anyone is home. They waited. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Minutes passed. No response came. Nothing, Commander, Sorval reported. Either they cannot hear us or they choose not to answer. Jalrix considered his options. Unknown vessels in Imperial space were required to identify themselves. It was law, enforced by firepower when necessary. But something about this situation felt wrong. The way the vessel appeared and disappeared, the complete absence of any propulsion signature, the silence. Bring the fleet to readiness condition 2, he ordered. Have the Striking Hammer and Golden Pride move to flanking positions. We're going to get closer. The Endless Conquest moved forward, its massive engines pushing the 2-kilometer warship through space. The rest of Jalrix's small battle group followed, forming a standard interception pattern. They had done this 1,000 times before with smugglers, rebels, and foolish pirates. As they closed the distance, the strange vessel appeared again. This time Jalrix got a better look. It was perhaps 100 meters long, smooth and unmarked. No windows, no obvious weapons ports, no identification markings of any kind. Its hull seemed to shift colors, flowing from silver to black to something that hurt his eyes to perceive. Reading propulsion systems? He asked. Maltic shook her head, clearly frustrated. None, sir. No engine signature, no exhaust, no gravitational displacement. It's as if the vessel isn't moving at all, but space is moving around it. That's impossible. Yes, sir, I know. Jalrix watched as the unknown vessel drifted closer to his fleet's formation. It moved with an eerie grace, completely silent, completely inexplicable. His instincts, honed by decades of combat, screamed warnings at him. Weapons ready, shields at maximum, he commanded. But hold fire unless I give the order. We don't know what we're dealing with here. The tactical officer confirmed the orders, and Jalrix felt the subtle vibration as the Endless Conquest's weapon systems came online. Enough firepower to crack a moon sat ready at his command. The ghost vessel approached their blockade formation. 3 warships positioned to intercept anything trying to pass through their net. It was a formation that had stopped countless enemies before. The strange ship didn't slow down. It didn't change course. It simply continued forward at its steady, impossible pace. Sir, collision warning, Maltic shouted. That vessel is going to pass directly through our formation in 30 seconds. It will stop or turn, Jalrix said, though he wasn't certain. No ship would dare ram an Imperial battle group. 20 seconds. The vessel kept coming. Should we move, Commander? His helmsman asked nervously. Hold position. Let's see what this fool does. 10 seconds. Jalrix gripped the arms of his command chair. Every instinct told him to order evasive maneuvers, but pride kept him still. The Crithian Empire did not move aside for unknown vessels. 5 seconds. The ghost ship should have started emergency braking. It didn't. Then something impossible happened. The vessel passed directly through the Striking Hammer's hull. Not around it. Not over it. Through it. As if the warship wasn't there at all. as if it was nothing more than a hologram. "Striking hammer, report," Zalrix shouted, leaping from his chair. "Did you take damage?" The reply came back confused and shaken. "No damage, Commander, no impact. The unknown vessel it phased right through us. Our sensors say it occupied the same space as our ship for 3 seconds, but we felt nothing. No collision, no breach, nothing." Zalrix stared at the view screen in disbelief. In all his years, in all the battles and strange phenomena he had witnessed, nothing had prepared him for this. Ships did not pass through other ships. It violated every law of physics he knew. The ghost vessel continued on its path, drifting away from the fleet as if nothing had happened. "Attempt weapon lock," Zalrix ordered, his voice hard. "If we can't block it, perhaps we can convince it to stop." Maltic worked her console. "Targeting systems cannot achieve lock, sir. The vessel is there, then it isn't. Our weapons predict its position, but by the time the calculations finish, it has already moved. Or shifted. Or something. I cannot explain it properly. Try anyway." The Endless Conquest fired a warning shot, a beam of concentrated energy that could slice through a battlecruiser's armor. The ghost ship flickered and the beam passed harmlessly through empty space. Zalrix felt cold dread settling in his gut. This wasn't a malfunction. This wasn't sensor glitches or faulty equipment. This vessel possessed technology so far beyond the Empire's understanding that it might as well be magic. "Open a priority channel to High Command," he said quietly. "Full security encryption. Tell them we have encountered something unprecedented. Tell them we need reinforcements, scientists, and every expert they can send." He stared at the view screen, watching the impossible vessel drift away into the darkness between stars. "And tell them," he added, "that the Empire may have finally found something it cannot simply conquer." The ghost ship vanished from their sensors one final time. But Zalrix knew somehow that this was far from over. This was only the beginning. High Admiral Korthax stood on the observation deck of his flagship, the Fist of Empire, and watched the assembled fleet spread out before him. 217 warships representing the greatest military force ever gathered in this sector, carriers filled with fighters, dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, support vessels carrying equipment that could reshape planets. If Commander Zalrix was right, and something truly unknown lurked in these border regions, Korthax would crush it with overwhelming force. He was old, even by Crithian standards. His scales had faded from bright crimson to a dull copper, and his movements carried the stiffness of age. But his mind remained sharp and his reputation remained fearsome. In 300 years of service, he had never lost a major battle. He did not intend to start now. "Admiral, the fleet report's ready," his second-in-command announced. "All vessels are in position around the asteroid field. The target vessel is confirmed inside the perimeter." "Good," Korthax rumbled. He turned to face the tactical display, which showed their trap laid out in perfect detail. The ghost ship, as the crews had started calling it, sat in the center of a massive asteroid field. His fleet surrounded the area completely, creating a sphere of ships that nothing could escape through. "Deploy gravity nets," he commanded. "I want space itself locked down. Whatever tricks this vessel uses, we'll trap it in place first." Across the fleet, specialized vessels activated their gravity manipulation systems. Invisible fields of force began to weave through the asteroid field, creating a web that would hold even the fastest ship in place. The technology was expensive and rare, but the Empire had plenty of resources. "Nets deployed and active, Admiral. All readings nominal," Korthax nodded. "Activate quantum disruptors." Full power. Now the real weapons came online. Disruptors that tore at the fabric of space-time itself, making it impossible for any known ship to maintain shields or structural integrity. The Empire had developed these weapons specifically to fight the energy-based luminarchs decades ago. They were brutally effective. "Sir, the ghost vessel is still reading on sensors. It has not moved." "Perhaps it finally realizes it's outmatched," Korthax said with satisfaction. "Prepare reality anchors. If this thing is phasing between dimensions or using some kind of cloaking technology, the anchors will force it into our space." The reality anchors were the newest weapon in the Empire's arsenal, barely out of testing. They locked down dimensional boundaries, preventing any travel or shifting between different layers of space. Only 5 ships in the fleet carried them, and their power requirements were enormous. "Anchors activating now, sir. All systems showing green." The trap was complete. Gravity nets, quantum disruptors, and reality anchors all working together. Nothing in the known galaxy could escape such a combination. Korthax felt a surge of satisfaction. Whatever this ghost ship was, whoever built it, they would learn to respect Imperial might. Now we wait, he said, and watch. For several minutes nothing happened. The ghost ship remained where it was, appearing and disappearing on sensors as it had before, but it didn't try to escape. Korthax began to wonder if perhaps the vessel was damaged or unmanned. Then it moved, but it didn't move like any ship should. It didn't accelerate. It didn't turn. It simply existed in a different position, as if it had teleported a few kilometers to the left. Then it moved again, this time appearing behind an asteroid that should have blocked its path. "Admiral, the gravity nets are reporting. Something strange," the tactical officer said, confusion clear in his voice. "The vessel isn't fighting against them. It's as if the nets aren't even there. Why, that's impossible. Check your readings. I have checked them, sir. Multiple times. The nets are active and functioning perfectly. The ghost ship is simply ignoring them." Korthax felt a flicker of unease. "Fine, begin the assault. All ships fire at will. I want that vessel disabled or destroyed." The fleet opened fire. Thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously. Energy beams that could melt mountains. Missiles that could crack continents, plasma cannons that burned at stellar temperatures. The asteroid field lit up like a newborn star as enough firepower to sterilize a world converged on one small vessel. When the light faded, the ghost ship remained, untouched, undamaged, unchanged. "Impossible," Korthax whispered. "Admiral, the tactical computer is showing something odd," his second-in-command reported. "According to the prediction algorithms, the ghost ship was never in any of the positions we fired at. It's as if it knew where every shot would be before we fired. That's not possible. Our targeting systems are instantaneous." "Yes, sir. I know, but the data doesn't lie. Every weapon fired at a position the ghost ship had already moved from. Not moved to avoid the shot, but had already moved before we even fired." Korthax stared at the readings, his mind struggling to accept what they implied. "It's predicting our attacks? Or something else, sir? Something we don't understand?" "Launch all fighters," Korthax ordered, his voice tight. "Get pilots close to that vessel. Sensors and weapons at range aren't working. Let's see what our people can learn with their own eyes." Across the fleet, launch bays opened and fighters poured out like angry insects. Thousands of small craft, each piloted by trained warriors, streamed toward the ghost ship. Their orders were simple: get close, observe, and if possible, force the vessel to respond. Fighter Squadron Leader Vextar led the first wave in. She was an experienced pilot, calm under pressure with 70 confirmed kills to her name. As she approached the ghost ship, she activated all her sensors and watched the readings carefully. "Command, this is Vextar. I have visual on the target. It looks strange. The hull appears to be flowing like liquid metal. I'm not seeing any visible propulsion, no weapons, no markings at all. Copy that, Vextar. Move closer and maintain observation." She brought her fighter within 100 meters of the ghost ship. This close, she could see details that the long-range sensors missed. The vessel's surface seemed to ripple with colors that shouldn't exist, patterns that made her eyes water. "Command, I'm getting unusual readings on my instruments. Mass signature it's showing 0. Temperature is showing 0. Electromagnetic field is completely absent. It's as if this ship doesn't physically exist." "Say again, Vextar." "The ship is right in front of me. I can see it with my own eyes. But my instruments say there's nothing here. No mass, no energy, nothing." Before Command could respond, Vextar watched something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. A large asteroid drifted toward the ghost ship, moving on its natural trajectory through the field. She expected the vessel to move or for the asteroid to impact it. Instead, the asteroid passed directly through the ghost ship. She saw the rock enter the vessel's hull on one side and emerge from the other side. Completely unchanged, the ghost ship flickered for just a moment like a bad hologram, then solidified again. "By all the gods," Vextar breathed. "Command, did you see that?" "The asteroid passed through it." "Passed through it. This isn't a ship." "I don't know what this is, but it's not a ship." Admiral Korthax stood frozen on his bridge, watching the fighter squadron cam footage. His crew stared at their displays in stunned silence. Nothing made sense. The laws of physics were being violated right in front of them. "All ships, cease fire," he said quietly. "Fall back to defensive positions, sir." His second-in-command questioned, "We can't fight this. We're wasting ammunition on something that exists outside our understanding. Fall back and establish a perimeter. I need to think. As the fleet began its retreat, the ghost ship finally responded. A transmission came through on all frequencies at once, perfectly clear, in flawless Crithian language. Why do you persist in shooting at shadows? The voice was calm, almost amused. Human. Though Korthax didn't recognize that, the transmission ended as abruptly as it began. Korthax stared at the speaker in his command throne, feeling true fear for the first time in a century. They had thrown everything at this vessel, everything, and it had simply ignored them, as if the Empire's might was nothing more than an inconvenience. "Get me the Science Council," he said, his voice hoarse, "and send a priority message to the Emperor himself. We need help. Real help." He looked back at the view screen, where the ghost ship drifted peacefully among the asteroids, completely unthreatened by the mightiest fleet the Crithians could assemble. "What are you?" he whispered to the empty bridge. The Grand Council chamber on Crithia Prime had not seen such a gathering in 50 years. Representatives from across the known galaxy filled the vast hall, their voices creating a din of confusion and worry. The Crithian Empire had called for aid, and that alone was enough to terrify the smaller civilizations. Ambassador Thelmora of the Vane Collective floated in her environmental sphere, her crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns. She had lived for 800 years and thought she had seen everything the galaxy could offer. The footage Admiral Korthax had transmitted proved her wrong. "This is clearly a hoax," declared General Zarthun of the Zyrathi Hive. His insectoid features twisted with suspicion. "The Empire wishes to trick us into combining our fleets, placing our forces under their command." "It is no hoax," High Counselor Marketh said, his old voice carrying authority through the chamber. He was the Emperor's personal representative, and his word was law in situations like this. "We have verified the sensor logs. We have interviewed the witnesses. We have sent 3 more fleets to observe the vessel. All reports are identical. This ghost ship, whatever it is, represents a threat to everything we know. A luminarch named Brightness of Dawn pulsed with skeptical light. The energy being's translated thoughts echoed through the chamber. The Crithian Empire asks us to believe in a ship that cannot be touched, cannot be damaged, and ignores the laws of physics. Forgive our doubt." Marketh gestured to the viewing screen, where footage of the ghost ship played again. "See for yourselves. We are not asking you to believe our words. We are asking you to believe your own eyes." The assembled representatives watched in silence as the recording showed massive Imperial warships firing at the strange vessel, their weapons passing through it like light through air. They saw fighters approach it, saw asteroids drift through its hull, saw it move in ways that should be impossible. Thelmora felt a chill run through her crystalline core. She had studied physics for 3 centuries. She had helped design some of the Vane Collective's most advanced ships. Nothing in her vast knowledge could explain what she was seeing. "If this is real," she said slowly, her voice singing through her sphere's speakers, "then we must assume it is a weapon. A probe sent to scout before an invasion. Whatever species built this has technology centuries beyond our own." "Agreed," said Zarthun, his earlier suspicion replaced by grim acceptance. "The Hive's science cast has analyzed the data. They believe the vessel is phasing through multiple dimensions simultaneously. It exists in our space and in other spaces at the same time." Brightness of Dawn pulsed with concerned light. "If they can build one such vessel, they can build thousands. We must prepare a defense or prepare to surrender." The chamber erupted in debate. Some wanted to attempt communication again. Others wanted to flee to distant sectors. A few suggested destroying the vessel with weapons so powerful they would crack the planet it orbited. Marketh raised his hand for silence. "We have a plan. Our finest scientists, along with experts from the Vane Collective and the Luminarch houses, have designed a trap. A dimensional cage that will lock down all of space-time in a specific area. The vessel cannot phase shift if there are no other dimensions to shift into." "You have tested this?" Thelmora asked. "In simulations, yes." "The theory is sound." "Theory," Zarthun said darkly. "Always theory. But very well. The Hive will commit 30 warships to this effort. If the Empire's plan fails, at least we will have witnessed it together." Over the following days, the coalition assembled. Not since the ancient war had so many different species worked together. The Crithian Empire provided the warships and the location. The Vane Collective brought their dimensional scientists and specialized equipment. The Luminarchs contributed their unique understanding of space-time. Even the Zirathi, who rarely cooperated with anyone, sent their best technical minds. The trap was built at the junction of 3 star systems, a place where space naturally bent and twisted. If the ghost ship followed its previous pattern, it would pass through this region within the week. And when it did, they would be ready. Dr. Risala stood on the observation deck of the research vessel Seeking Truth and watched the preparations with mixed feelings. She was young for a Crithian scientist, barely 70 years old, but her work on quantum mechanics had earned her a place on this mission. She should have been excited. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Instead, she felt dread. Something about this entire situation felt wrong. The ghost ship had done nothing aggressive. It hadn't fired on anyone. It hadn't threatened any planets. It simply existed and moved through space in ways they didn't understand, and their response was to trap it, cage it, presumably destroy it. Dr. Risala, her assistant, a Vane named Crystal Song, floated beside her. The dimensional cage is almost complete. They want you to verify the calculations one last time. Of course, Risala said, turning away from the viewport. Though I still think we should try talking to it first. We tried. It didn't respond, except for that one cryptic message about shooting at shadows. Risala pulled up the calculations on her datapad, checking the complex mathematics that would power their trap. The numbers were correct as far as she could tell. When activated, the cage would create a bubble of locked space-time. Nothing would be able to enter or leave. Nothing would be able to shift between dimensions. Whatever occupied that space would be frozen in their current phase of reality. Something troubles you, Crystal Song observed. Her species was good at reading emotions even across biological differences. Yes, Risala admitted. That message. Why do you persist in shooting at shadows? What did it mean? That we are wasting our time? That it is not threatened? Maybe. Or maybe it meant something deeper. Shadows aren't real things. They're absences of light. What if the ghost ship is trying to tell us that we're fighting something that isn't actually there? Not in the way we think, anyway. Before Crystal Song could respond, alarms sounded throughout the research vessel. The ghost ship has been detected, a voice announced over the speakers. It is entering the trap zone. All vessels to stations. Activate the dimensional cage on my mark. Risala rushed to her console, joining dozens of other scientists in monitoring the cage's activation. She watched her screens as the ghost ship drifted closer, moving at its usual steady pace. It seemed so small and harmless compared to the massive coalition fleet surrounding it. All systems ready, the mission commander announced. Activate cage in 3, 2, 1. Now the dimensional cage came to life. Risala saw the readings on her console spike to maximum levels. Energy poured into the space around the ghost ship, billions of units of power creating a prison of locked reality. For one moment, one brief, glorious moment, it worked. The ghost ship stopped flickering. It solidified completely on their sensors. Risala got readings she had never seen before. The vessel was small, yes, but its hull was made of materials that shouldn't exist, elements that weren't on any periodic table, structures that existed in more than 3 dimensions. It was beautiful and terrifying in its impossibility. We have it, someone shouted. Then the ghost ship did something unexpected. It emitted a pulse. Not an energy weapon, not an explosion, just a pulse of something. A quantum signature that spread out from the vessel in all directions. Risala watched in amazement as the pulse reached their ships. And when it did, something strange happened. Every artificial intelligence on every ship in the fleet simultaneously displayed the same message on its screen. Every computer, every ship's brain, every automated system showed the exact same question. The words appeared in perfect script on Risala's console, glowing softly. Why are you afraid of something that's already gone? She read it 3 times, not understanding. Already gone? Gone where? Gone when? Then she looked at her sensor readings of the ghost ship, and her blood ran cold. The timestamp on the readings, the quantum signature she was analyzing. It was showing something impossible. The data was old, very old. Not recorded in the present moment, but recorded in the past. The ship they were looking at, the readings they were getting, weren't from now. They were echoes, after images. The ghost ship wasn't in their present at all. It was displaced in time, existing microseconds or seconds ahead or behind their current moment. Crystal Song, she said urgently. Pull up the ghost ship's movement logs. All of them, from every encounter. Her assistant quickly compiled the data. Risala studied the patterns, her mind racing. The ghost ship never moved through space in the traditional sense. It moved through time. When it appeared to teleport, it was actually stepping slightly forward or backward through the time stream. When weapons passed through it, they were firing at where it had been or would be, never where it was. By the ancestors, she whispered, we're not fighting a ship that can't be touched. We're fighting a ship that's never in the same moment as us. The dimensional cage began to fail. The ghost ship, existing partially in the past and future simultaneously, simply wasn't affected by a trap designed for the present. It flickered once, twice, then phased out of the cage completely. And as it left, every AI in the fleet asked its question one more time. Why are you afraid of something that's already gone? Risala sat down heavily in her chair, her mind spinning with possibilities. If the ship could move through time, Dr. Risala worked through the night cycle, her eyes burning from staring at screens for so many hours. Crystal Song had gone to rest, but Risala couldn't stop. She knew she was close to understanding something important, something that would change everything. The research vessel's archives contained data going back thousands of years. Military records, sensor logs, even ancient star charts from before the Empire had conquered most of the known galaxy. Risala searched through them all, looking for any mention of ships that moved strangely, that appeared and disappeared, that existed outside normal space-time. She found nothing. Nothing at all. Until she went back further. 10,000 years ago, the galaxy had been very different. Dozens of species competed for resources and territory. Wars raged constantly. The Crithian Empire had been just one small civilization among many, not the dominant force it would later become. And according to the old records, there had been another species, one that showed great promise. Humans. Risala had heard of them in history classes, but only briefly. They were mentioned as a failed species, one that had destroyed itself in some kind of civil war. Their worlds had gone silent suddenly, all at once, leaving behind ruins and mysteries. Most historians assumed they had blown themselves up with weapons too powerful to control. But what if that wasn't true? Risala dug deeper into the archives, accessing files that were marked as historical curiosities barely worth keeping. She found reports from Crethian scouts who had visited human worlds shortly after they went silent. The descriptions were strange. No bodies, no destruction. The cities stood empty but intact. Ships sat in orbital docks, undamaged but abandoned. It was as if every human had simply vanished at the same moment, leaving everything behind. One report caught her attention. A Crithian archaeologist had explored a human research facility on a planet called Earth. In the facility's records, translated with difficulty from the dead human language, he found something interesting. The humans had been working on something they called temporal displacement, time travel. According to the fragmentary notes, the humans believed they were trapped. Their species had grown too aggressive, too violent, too destructive. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times with wars and weapons. But a group of their scientists proposed a radical solution. If they couldn't change their nature, perhaps they could escape it. They could leave physical space entirely and exist in the margins of time itself. The archaeologist had dismissed this as fantasy, as myth. Species couldn't just abandon physical form. It was impossible. His report was filed away and forgotten. But Risala sat staring at those old words, and they suddenly made perfect sense. The ghost ship didn't phase through space. It phased through time, because it was built by humans who had learned to exist outside normal time. They hadn't destroyed themselves. They had evolved beyond physical reality. Impossible, she muttered to herself. But even as she said it, she knew it was true. She needed proof. Real proof. Something more than ancient reports and guesses. Risala pulled up the quantum signature data from the ghost ship, the strange pulse it had sent when they tried to trap it. She had been studying it for days without understanding what it meant. Now, with her new theory, she looked at it differently. The signature wasn't random. It was information, densely packed in a format that no one had thought to decode properly. She ran it through translation algorithms, quantum decryption programs, every tool she had access to. Slowly, patterns emerged. Mathematical formulas, physical constants, and then buried deep in the data, something else. A genetic marker. DNA sequences. Human DNA sequences. Risala's hands shook as she compiled her findings. She now had proof that the ghost ship was connected to humanity, but she needed to verify it against human genetic records. The problem was, human genetic data from 10,000 years ago was almost impossible to find. The species had been gone for so long that most of their biological information had been lost. Almost impossible. But not quite. She remembered a museum on Crithia Prime, a place that kept samples from extinct species. She contacted them immediately, not caring that it was the middle of the night cycle for them too. "This is Dr. Risala, Priority Research for the Imperial Science Council. I need access to your human genetic samples." "Yes, humans. The extinct species. I don't care if they're old, I need them now." 2 hours later, she had the data. Ancient, degraded, but enough. She compared it to the genetic markers in the ghost ship's signature. It matched. Perfectly. "They're human," she whispered to the empty lab. "The ghost ship is human." But that raised more questions than it answered. If humanity had learned to transcend physical form 10,000 years ago, why were they back now? Why were they exploring the galaxy in these strange vessels? And what did they want? Risala thought back to the messages the ghost ship had sent. "Why do you persist in shooting at shadows? And why are you afraid of something that's already gone?" They weren't threats. They were questions. Real questions, asking why the current civilizations were reacting with violence to something they didn't understand. She needed to report this. The Grand Council had to know what they were really dealing with. This wasn't an enemy invasion force. This was humanity, or what humanity had become, returning to the galaxy they once called home. But as she prepared her report, her console beeped with an urgent message. It was from High Counselor Marketh himself, marked as highest priority. "All vessels, all stations, prepare for emergency broadcast. We have a situation." Risala pulled up the fleet-wide communication channel, her heart racing. On the screen, Marketh's old face looked shaken, almost frightened. "Attention all forces," he said, his voice tight. "The situation has changed dramatically. We are detecting multiple ghost ship signatures, not just one vessel but many. They are appearing simultaneously across Imperial space." Risala switched her sensors to the tactical display, and her breath caught in her throat. He was right. Ghost ship signatures were appearing everywhere. 10, 20, 50, 100. They materialized at major Imperial worlds, trade routes, military installations, each one identical to the original vessel that had started all of this. "All military units are ordered to defensive positions," Marketh continued. "Do not, I repeat, do not fire on the vessels unless they show hostile intent. We are attempting to establish communication." Risala watched the map light up with more and more contacts. The ghost ships were appearing in the territories of every major species. The Vane Collective, the Zirathi Hive, the Luminarch houses. No one was being excluded. Whatever was happening, it was happening to everyone at once. Her console chimed with an incoming transmission. It wasn't from the fleet. It wasn't from any known source. It was coming from the nearest ghost ship, which had appeared in orbit of their research vessel just minutes ago. "Dr. Risala," a voice said. It was speaking Crithian, but with an accent she had never heard before. "We know you have been searching for answers. We know you understand what we are. You are correct. We are human, or what humanity has become after 10,000 years of evolution beyond flesh." "Why?" Risala found herself asking. "Why are you here?" "Why now?" "Because we have been watching. Always watching. We left physical form to survive, but we never left this galaxy. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have watched species make the same mistakes that nearly destroyed us. The Crithian Empire in particular has been following a dangerous path. Are you here to stop us? To punish us?" The voice on the other end paused. When it spoke again, it sounded sad. "No, we are here to offer you a choice. The same choice we once faced. Continue on your current path of conquest and domination, or evolve into something better. We cannot force you to change. We can only show you that another way exists. What if we refuse? Then you refuse. We will not harm you. We will not invade or conquer. We gave up such things long ago. But understand this. The galaxy is infinite and the universe is even larger. There are forces out there that make your empire seem small. If your species cannot learn to move beyond violence and aggression, you will eventually encounter something that will destroy you. We nearly made that mistake. We hope you will not." The transmission ended, leaving Risala alone with her thoughts. Around her, Throughout the galaxy, hundreds of ghost ships waited silently, not threatening, not attacking, simply present, like living reminders that evolution was always possible. She began to write her report, knowing that everything had changed. The question now wasn't how to fight the ghost ships. It was whether the galaxy's civilizations would have the wisdom to listen to what they were offering. In the ancient human facility on Earth, 10,000 years ago, humans had made an impossible choice. They had chosen to evolve beyond their own violent nature, even if it meant giving up everything they knew. Now that choice was being offered to others. And no one knew what would happen next. The Emperor's throne room on Crithia Prime had stood for 2,000 years, a symbol of unshakable power. Emperor Valthros XVI sat on that throne now, listening to reports from across his empire, and for the first time in his long reign, he felt uncertain. On the massive view screens that lined the walls, he could see ghost ships hovering over his most important worlds. They had been there for 3 days now, doing nothing. Just waiting. The entire galaxy held its breath, expecting war, but no war came. Dr. Risala's report is confirmed, Your Majesty, High Counselor Marketh said, his voice weary. We have verified her findings through multiple sources. The ghost ships are of human origin. Humanity did not die out 10,000 years ago. They transcended physical form. Valthros was old even by imperial standards. He had ruled for nearly a century, and before that he had been a general, a diplomat, a scholar. He had seen much in his 400 years of life, but this challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. And these humans, he said slowly, what do they want? Revenge for ancient wrongs? Territory? Resources? None of those things, Majesty. They have made contact with several of our research teams. Their message is consistent across all communications. They claim to be offering us a choice. What choice? Marketh hesitated. To evolve beyond our current nature. To abandon conquest and domination. To become something they call post-physical beings. They say they are here not as conquerors, but as teachers. Silence filled the throne room. The Emperor's advisors shifted uncomfortably. Teaching implied that students had something to learn, that their way was somehow wrong. The Empire had ruled through strength for millennia. To suggest they needed to change was to question the foundation of their entire civilization. Admiral Korthak stepped forward. His fleet still surrounded the original ghost ship, though his weapons remained cold. Your Majesty, with respect, this could be a trick. A way to make us lower our defenses before they strike. I recommend we test their intentions. How would you propose we do that, Admiral? Fire on one of their vessels. If they truly mean no harm, they will simply evade as they have before. If they are hostile, they will reveal their true nature. And if we anger them, another advisor asked.
These beings have technology so far beyond ours that we cannot even touch their ships.
If we provoke them into violence, we could doom the entire empire. The debate raged on, but Valthros was no longer listening. His mind had gone to a memory from long ago when he was young. He had been a soldier then, fighting in the conquest of the vain collective worlds. He remembered standing in the ruins of a crystalline city, watching refugees flee into the wilderness. An old vain elder had looked at him with her many-faceted eyes and said something he had never forgotten. You think you are strong because you can destroy, but true strength is in what you choose not to destroy. He had dismissed those words at the time. Now, 400 years later, they echoed in his mind. A priority transmission interrupted the council meeting. The communication officer's voice was urgent. Your Majesty, the humans are broadcasting a message. It's being sent to every inhabited planet, every ship, every station in the galaxy. Everyone can hear it. Put it through, Valthros commanded. The view screens changed, showing not a human but a representation of one. A holographic figure that looked like the ancient descriptions of humanity. Bipedal, smooth-skinned, remarkably similar to Crithians in basic shape but different in countless small ways. When it spoke, its voice was transmitted in every known language simultaneously. People of the galaxy, we are what remains of humanity. 10,000 years ago, our species stood where many of you stand now. We were aggressive, territorial, violent. We built weapons that could crack worlds. We waged wars that killed billions. We nearly destroyed ourselves completely. The hologram paused, as if remembering painful history. We were given a warning by a species far older than us, a species that has since moved beyond this galaxy entirely. They told us that the universe is filled with predators, with forces that view violent civilizations as threats to be eliminated. They told us we had a choice, evolve or be destroyed. We chose evolution. We chose to abandon our physical forms and exist as patterns of consciousness in the fabric of time itself. It was not easy. We gave up everything we knew. Our bodies, our worlds, our familiar reality, but we survived. And in surviving, we became something better. The hologram's expression softened. Now we return to the galaxy we once called home, and we see the same patterns repeating. The Crithian Empire expands through conquest. The Zyrathi hive consumes resources without thought for sustainability. The Vane Collective hoards knowledge while others struggle. You are all following the path we once walked, and that path leads to destruction. We cannot force you to change. We will not invade your worlds or threaten your people, but we can show you what is possible. We can teach you how to transcend the limitations of flesh, how to exist beyond the cycle of violence and competition, how to evolve into beings of pure thought and energy. The choice is yours. We will remain here waiting for those who wish to learn. For those who choose to continue as you are, we wish you well. But know that the universe is watching, and violent civilizations do not survive long. The predators will come eventually, and when they do, your weapons will not save you. Only evolution can. The transmission ended, leaving stunned silence across the galaxy. In the throne room, Emperor Valthros sat very still. He looked at Admiral Korthax, at High Counselor Marketh, at all his advisors and generals. These were good people, loyal and true, but they were also products of an empire built on conquest. They knew no other way. The humans ask us to give up everything we are, Korthax said into the silence. Our bodies, our worlds, our very existence as a physical civilization. It's too much. We should refuse, perhaps, Valthros said quietly. But consider what we would gain. They offer us immortality of a sort. Freedom from physical needs, from disease, from death. They offer us the ability to explore the universe in ways we never could in these limited forms. At what cost, Majesty? Our identity? Our culture? Everything that makes us Crithian? Valthros had no answer to that. Across the galaxy, different species were having similar conversations. Some rejected the human offer immediately, seeing it as a threat to everything they valued. Others were curious, cautiously interested in learning more. And a few, particularly younger civilizations tired of being dominated by the Empire, were actively enthusiastic. Dr. Risala stood in her laboratory and made a decision that would change her life forever. She had spent her entire existence studying the physical universe, understanding how matter and energy worked. The humans offered knowledge beyond anything she had ever imagined. She recorded a message to her family explaining her choice. Then she contacted the nearest ghost ship and volunteered to be the first Crithian to attempt the transformation. The process was unlike anything she could have imagined. Her consciousness was slowly uploaded, converted from electrical impulses in a biological brain into patterns of quantum information. She felt her body falling away, becoming irrelevant. For a terrifying moment, she existed in a void, neither physical nor non-physical. Then she opened her new senses, and the universe blazed with information. She could perceive time itself, could see the past and future as easily as she had once seen colors. She could exist in multiple places simultaneously, could think at speeds that made her old biological brain seem impossibly slow. She had become what humans had become, a being of pure consciousness dwelling in the spaces between moments, and she was not alone. Other volunteers were joining her from different species, different worlds. Young people mostly, those who were not invested in the old ways, who wanted something different, something better. But many chose to remain as they were. Emperor Valthros made his announcement personally. The Crithian Empire would not mandate transformation. Those who wished to evolve could do so freely. Those who wished to remain physical could keep their worlds and their ways. The Empire would adapt, would find a new path forward that honored both choices. It was Admiral Korthax who surprised everyone. The old warrior, who had spent 3 centuries fighting for the Empire, who had seemed the least likely to accept change, stepped forward during the announcement. "I have thought long about this," he said, his voice carrying the weight of his years. "I have fought wars for this empire. I have killed countless beings in its name. I have believed that strength came from the ability to destroy. But the humans have shown us something I never expected to see. They are stronger than us, more advanced than us, and yet they do not conquer. They do not dominate. Perhaps true strength really is in what we choose not to destroy. He turned to face the Emperor. I wish to be among the first to transform. Let an old warrior show that it is never too late to evolve. In the end, the galaxy split into 3 groups. Some species, like the Xyrathi hive, rejected the humans entirely and withdrew to their own territories, determined to remain as they had always been. Others, like the younger civilizations, embraced transformation eagerly, and most, including the Crithian Empire, chose a middle path, allowing individuals. The Great Hall of the Galactic Concordat stretched across 300 meters of polished stone. 7 species had built this chamber together, each contributing materials from their homeworlds. The Vrexian delegation sat on crystalline seats that hummed with their bioelectric fields. The Kethrans preferred the warm pools along the eastern wall. The Mycolians stood rooted in soil beds, their fungal networks connecting beneath the floor. Representatives from the Sauric Union, the Pelthine Collective, the Haxor Dominion, and the Zell Commonwealth filled the remaining spaces. They had gathered to discuss a problem. A new problem. A human problem. Ambassador Tholrek of Vrex stood at the central podium, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of concern. The bioluminescent patterns on his carapace pulsed red and orange, colors that conveyed urgency to those who understood Vrexian body language. Members of the Concordat, Tholrek began, his translator converting his clicking speech into standard galactic language. We can no longer ignore the threat rising in Sector 447. The species that calls themselves humans has achieved faster-than-light travel. They have established 17 colony worlds in just 30 cycles. Their expansion rate exceeds anything in recorded history. A Kethran delegate surfaced from her pool, water streaming from her gill slits. Expansion alone is not a crime, Ambassador. The Concordat exists to facilitate peaceful coexistence, not to punish success. Tholrek's patterns shifted to aggressive purple. This is not mere expansion. Our scouts have observed their behavior. They strip mine asteroids with no thought for ecological balance. They terraform worlds without checking for indigenous life. They have engaged in 17 separate wars among themselves, even as they spread across the stars. 17 wars, Delegate Surash. They are violent by nature. The Mycolian speaker released a cloud of spores that the translation systems interpreted as contemplative doubt. We have reviewed the data. Humans are primitive, yes. Aggressive, certainly. But they are also fractured. They fight each other constantly. They have no unified government. They pose no real threat to species as advanced as ours. That is precisely the danger, Tholrek insisted. His lower arms manipulated a holographic display. Images of human cities appeared, sprawling and chaotic. They are unpredictable. They lack the wisdom that comes with age. They have developed fusion weapons, kinetic bombardment systems, and biological agents. They have all the tools of advanced warfare, but none of the restraint. A Sauric representative, barely a meter tall and covered in silver fur, chittered a question. What do you propose, Ambassador? Tholrek turned to face the assembly fully. Intervention. While they are still manageable, we approach their homeworld with a fleet large enough to demonstrate our superiority. We offer them a choice. Join the Concordat under our guidance, accept limitations on their expansion and military development, or face quarantine in their home system. Quarantine? The Pelthine delegate's tentacles writhed in distress. The Pelthines were peaceful traders, uncomfortable with military talk. You speak of blockading an entire species? If necessary, Tholrek said. Consider the alternative. In 100 cycles, perhaps 200, humans will have spread across 1,000 worlds. They will have refined their weapons. They will be impossible to contain. Better to act now when they respect our technological advantage, when they will see the wisdom of guidance from elder species. The debate continued for hours. The Mycolians argued for patience and observation. The Kethrans suggested diplomatic contact without military pressure. The Haxor Dominion, a warrior culture themselves, surprisingly sided with caution, noting that even primitive species could be dangerous when cornered. But Tholrek was persuasive. He showed recordings of human military exercises, their weapons tests, their entertainment media filled with glorification of violence. He presented economic projections showing human colonies consuming resources at rates that would create competition with Concordat interests within 50 cycles. He painted a picture of a species that would either need to be guided now or fought later. The vote took place under the chamber's central dome, where light from the Concordate's founding stars shone through crystalline panels. Each delegate registered their decision through their species-specific interface. The results appeared in glowing symbols that all could understand. 5 species voted in favor of intervention. 2 voted against. Tholrek's patterns flashed victorious gold. The Concordate has spoken. I volunteer to lead the pacification fleet. We will approach the humans with overwhelming force and clear intention. They will see that resistance is futile. They will accept our terms, and the galaxy will be safer for it. One voice rose in final protest. Scholar Mixon of the Mycolians, an elderly entity whose network had lived for 600 cycles, released spores that translated to grave warning. I must note my objection for the record. We know very little about human psychology. They are the first species we have encountered that evolved as persistence hunters, that developed civilization through competition rather than cooperation. Every species in this chamber evolved from prey animals or communal organisms. We may not understand how a predator species thinks. Tholrek dismissed the concern with a wave of his upper arms. They are flesh and blood, scholar. They require oxygen, water, and food. They can be killed. They will understand the language of superior force just as all species do. Your caution is noted but unnecessary. The preparations began immediately. The Concordate's military, rarely assembled at full strength, began gathering at the Nexus yards. Warships from 7 different species, each designed according to their own engineering principles, formed into a unified armada. The Vrexian dreadnoughts, massive and bristling with plasma batteries. The Kethran frigates, fast and equipped with advanced shields. The Haxor battle carriers, each holding squadrons of fighters. The Sauric stealth ships. The Pelthine support vessels. The Zell cruisers with their experimental weapons. The Mycolian bioships, living vessels grown rather than built. 3,000 ships in total. The largest fleet ever assembled by the Concordate. More than enough to intimidate any reasonable species into compliance. Tholrek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable consequence, and watched the fleet take formation around him. His crew worked efficiently at their stations, confident in their technology and training. They had no reason for doubt. The Concordate had existed for 12,000 cycles. They had welcomed 43 species into their fold, some peacefully, others after brief demonstrations of force. Not one had refused to see reason once confronted with Concordate power. Humans would be no different. They had to be reasonable. All intelligent species were reasonable when faced with overwhelming odds. The fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives. Space folded around them. They vanished from the Nexus yards and began their journey to human space. The trip would take 15 standard days. Tholrek spent that time reviewing the battle plans, though he expected no battle. This would be a show of force, nothing more. The humans would see the fleet, understand their position, and accept the Concordate's generous terms. He recorded a message to be sent to the Concordate Council upon arrival. We depart for human space with confidence and purpose. When next you hear from me, the human question will be resolved. The galaxy will have one more member species, properly guided and controlled. This is a great day for peace and order. The message was transmitted back to the Concordate homeworlds. It would be the last optimistic communication the Council would receive for a very long time. Tholrek had no way of knowing that he had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. He had no way of knowing that humanity had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it, dreading it since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered what else was out there. He had no way of knowing that humans did not think like other species, that they would not calculate odds and accept the logical outcome, that they would rather burn than kneel. The fleet jumped toward its destination, carrying 3,000 ships and 7 species toward a war that would leave only ruins behind. The planet New Harmony orbited a yellow star on the outer edge of human-colonized space. 3 million humans called it home. They grew crops in engineered soil, raised children in prefabricated cities, and dreamed of the day when their world would be as green as Earth. It was a peaceful place, far from the political tensions of the core worlds. That peace ended when the sensors detected 3,000 unknown vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Governor Sarah Chen received the alert in the middle of the night. She rushed to the command center still wearing her sleeping clothes, her heart hammering in her chest. The screen showed a sight that humanity had feared and hoped for in equal measure since they first left Earth. First contact. They were not alone. But this was not the friendly greeting humanity had imagined. The alien fleet formed a blockade pattern around the planet. Every ship had weapons active. Energy signatures indicated enough firepower to turn New Harmony's surface into molten glass. The communication came 30 minutes later. The translator algorithm struggled at first, then managed to produce understandable speech. The voice was artificial, emotionless, accompanied by visual data showing a creature with 4 arms and a shell-like body that glowed with strange lights. Humans of New Harmony, I am Ambassador Thalrek of the Galactic Concordat. You are hereby informed that humanity has been deemed a dangerous and unstable species. Your rapid expansion and militaristic tendencies pose a threat to galactic peace. The Concordat has voted to intervene in your development. You will accept Concordat oversight of your military and colonial programs. You will submit to technological limitations. You will join the Concordat as a junior member species, subject to guidance from elder civilizations. You have 12 standard hours to signal your acceptance. Refusal will result in the isolation of your species to your home system, enforced by permanent blockade. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Governor Chen stared at the screen long after the message ended. Around her, the command staff waited in shocked silence. They had no military vessels in orbit. New Harmony had a few patrol boats designed to intercept asteroids, nothing more. The nearest human fleet was 3 weeks away at best. She opened a channel back to the alien fleet. Ambassador Thalrek, I am Governor Sarah Chen. I speak for 3 million humans on this world. We have no authority to surrender humanity's sovereignty. That decision belongs to our governments on Earth and the other core worlds. If you want to negotiate, you need to contact them directly. You misunderstand. Thalrek's translated voice came back. This is not a negotiation. This is notification. We do not recognize your fractured political systems. You will accept Concordat terms or you will be contained. The choice is simple. Chen felt ice in her stomach. She had studied history. She knew what happened when advanced civilizations met less developed ones. It rarely ended well for the latter. And if we refuse, then you will remain on your current worlds. Any ship that attempts to leave human space will be destroyed. Any transmission will be blocked. You will be alone until such time as you develop the wisdom to join galactic civilization properly. Chen closed the channel. She looked at her staff. They looked back at her with fear in their eyes. She knew what she had to do, even though it terrified her. She opened a channel to Earth and the other colonies, sending the alien message and her recommendation. The response came back within 4 hours. It was not what the Concordat expected. No. That single word, transmitted from Earth, from Mars, from the 63 human colonies, was unanimous. Humanity had spent 300 years clawing their way to the stars. They had survived wars, plagues, climate disasters, and the near destruction of their homeworld. They had left Earth because they refused to put all their eggs in one basket, because they believed in spreading across the cosmos as insurance against extinction. And now aliens appeared, not with friendship or curiosity, but with ultimatums and threats. Humanity's answer was the same it had always been to those who demanded submission. No. Thalrek received the response with confusion that shifted to anger, his body lights flashing red. They refuse? They see our fleet and they refuse? This is illogical. They cannot win. His tactical officer, a younger Vrexian named Sixal, pointed to new sensor readings. Ambassador, we are detecting movement on the surface. The humans are launching something. Their patrol boats? Irrelevant. Destroy them. No, sir. Not ships. These are smaller, thousands of them, tens of thousands. The screens showed a swarm of objects rising from New Harmony's surface. They were crude, barely more than engines strapped to explosive warheads, but there were so many of them. The humans had converted their entire stockpile of industrial rockets into weapons. Evasive action, Thalrek ordered. Point defense systems, eliminate those primitives. The Concordat fleet's automated defenses activated. Lasers and plasma bursts filled space, destroying the incoming missiles by the hundreds. But more kept coming. The humans had launched everything they had, knowing most would be destroyed, counting on a few getting through, and a few did. 3 missiles struck a Catherine frigate, overwhelmed its shields and detonated against the hull. The ship did not explode, but it listed, trailing atmosphere and fluids. 6 more missiles hit a Sauric stealth vessel that had moved too close to the planet. Its stealth systems failed, and follow-up strikes tore it apart. Thalrek stared in disbelief as casualty reports came in. 2 ships destroyed, 7 damaged. Against primitive rockets, impossible. Return fire, he ordered. Target their launch sites. The fleet's main weapons spoke. Plasma beams lanced down through New Harmony's atmosphere, turning missile silos into craters. Kinetic rounds struck factories and military bases. The bombardment was precise and devastating, but the humans had expected it. The launch sites were automated, the operators already evacuated. The real military bases were decoys. While the Concordat fleet destroyed empty buildings, the human population was streaming into underground shelters and transport ships hidden in canyons and forests. They are escaping, Sixel reported. Multiple small vessels lifting off from scattered locations. They are using terrain to mask their signatures until they reach orbit. Intercept them all, Tholrek commanded. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was impossible. The fleeing ships scattered in every direction. Some were destroyed, but hundreds escaped, jumping to faster-than-light speed before the Concordat ships could pursue. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, New Harmony's surface was scarred but not destroyed. The Concordat fleet had won, but the victory felt hollow. 9 ships destroyed, 23 damaged, nearly 2,000 Concordat crew members dead, against a colony with no military fleet. And worse, most of the humans had escaped. Tholrek ordered Marines to land and secure the planet. They found a few thousand humans who had chosen to stay behind, mostly elderly and infirm who could not make the journey. The prisoners were processed and confined. One old man, a veteran of some human war, was brought before Tholrek. Why? Tholrek demanded. Why resist? You cannot win. We are more advanced, more numerous. Surrender would have saved lives. The old man looked at the alien ambassador with eyes that had seen too much. You don't understand us at all, do you? You came here with threats and demands. You told us to kneel or be destroyed. Did you really think we would accept that? It was logical, reasonable. Maybe for you, not for us. You want to know about humans? We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues. We are the species that split the atom and walked on our moon before we even had computers in our pockets. We are the species that nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times and kept coming back. You think you can break us? You just made the biggest mistake in your history. You are primitives with delusions of strength. The old man smiled, and there was no humor in it. You still don't understand. That's fine, you will. You see, you came to one colony and lost 9 ships. There are 63 human colonies, and now you have made all of them angry. You should have left us alone. Tholrek dismissed the prisoner, but as he stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, looking at casualty reports that should not exist, he felt the first touch of doubt. The fleet had won the battle, but the humans had fought with a ferocity that made no strategic sense. They had sacrificed everything to hurt the Concordat, even when victory was impossible. Then the reports started coming in from Concordat space. Human ships appearing without warning, not military vessels. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, colony ships, all of them loaded with weapons. All of them attacking Concordat targets without warning or mercy. The humans had gone to war. Not with strategy or careful planning, with rage. The war had been raging for 3 cycles, and Ambassador Tholrek no longer recognized the galaxy he had known. The Concordat fleet that had numbered 3,000 ships now counted fewer than 800 combat-capable vessels. The humans, who were supposed to be primitive and easily contained, had become a nightmare that haunted every corner of Concordat space. Tholrek stood in the war room aboard the inevitable Consequence, his carapace now scarred from 3 separate battles, his bioluminescent patterns permanently dimmed from stress. Around him, tactical displays showed a map of disasters. Red markers indicated Concordat worlds that had gone silent. Yellow markers showed systems under attack. Green markers, indicating safe territory, had nearly vanished. Report, he commanded, his voice tired. Sixal, now promoted to fleet commander after her predecessor died at the Battle of Kelthus, manipulated the display. The Haxor colony of Vrac 7 has fallen silent. That makes 11 Haxor worlds lost this cycle. The Dominion is requesting permission to withdraw its remaining forces from the Alliance. Denied, Tholrek said automatically, though he knew it was futile. The Concordat was breaking apart. Each species now fought primarily to defend its own territory. There is worse news, Sixel continued. We have confirmed the nature of the weapon used at Vrac 7. The humans deployed a kinetic impactor, a ship-sized mass of iron and nickel, accelerated to 90% of light speed. The impact released energy equivalent to... She paused, her patterns flickering with distress. Equivalent to 1,000,000 fusion warheads. Vrac 7 no longer has a biosphere. The planet is dead. Silence filled the war room. The Mycolian liaison, one of the few still communicating with the Vrexian command, released spores of mourning. They are using relativistic weapons. This violates every principle of civilized warfare. Tholrek would have laughed if he remembered how. Civilized warfare. The humans have no concept of it. They fight to exterminate, not to conquer. Every tactic we deem unthinkable, they embrace. The evidence supported his words. The humans had unleashed horrors across the galaxy. They used artificial intelligence to pilot unmanned ships, something the Concordat had banned for 8,000 cycles, after AI wars nearly destroyed several species. They deployed biological weapons engineered to target specific Concordat species, diseases that killed with terrible efficiency. They sent ships on suicide runs, ramming Concordat vessels at relativistic speeds. Worst of all, they targeted civilians without hesitation. Concordat colony ships, medical vessels, supply convoys, nothing was sacred. The humans seemed to believe that if they could not win, they would ensure the Concordat lost everything. How did we miss this? The Mycolian liaison asked. How did we not see what they were capable of? Tholrek finally had an answer to that question. He had spent the past 3 cycles studying human history, trying to understand the enemy he had created. We looked at their technology and thought we understood them. We did not look at their psychology. Every species in the Concordat evolved as prey or as communal organisms. We understand cooperation and hierarchy because our survival depended on it. Humans evolved as apex predators on a death world. He pulled up images of Earth, humanity's homeworld. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of cycles. Ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, plagues, megafauna that hunted them. They survived by being more stubborn than anything else on their world. They survived by refusing to give up, even when extinction seemed certain. And when they developed intelligence, they turned those survival instincts into culture. The displays showed human history, wars that killed millions, yet humanity persisted, disasters that should have ended their civilization, yet they rebuilt. They have a saying, Tholrek continued, "Give me liberty or give me death." They mean it literally. They would rather die as a species than submit to us. We threatened their freedom, and they responded the only way their evolution taught them. They are trying to kill us all. A priority alert interrupted the briefing. Sixal's patterns flashed alarm. Sir, multiple human fleets detected entering Vrexian core space. They are heading for... No, they would not. Where? Tholrek demanded, though Dread already told him the answer. They are heading for Vrex Prime, our homeworld. Fleet strength estimated at 200 vessels, but these are not military ships. They appear to be modified colony ships and cargo haulers. Their hulls are filled with fusion warheads and antimatter containment failures. Tholrek understood immediately. The humans were not coming to invade Vrex Prime. They were coming to destroy it. 200 ships each turned into a massive bomb, targeted at his homeworld, at the birthplace of his species, at the world where 3 billion Vrexians lived. How long until they arrive? 6 hours. And our defense fleet? Engaged in the outer sectors. They cannot return in time. We have orbital defense platforms, but against 200 ships... Sixal did not finish the sentence. They both knew the platforms would not be enough. Tholrek made his decision. Evacuate the homeworld. Emergency protocols. Get as many off-world as possible. In 6 hours, we might save a few million. The rest will die because I started this war. To it. The evacuation began, but it was chaos. Ships designed to carry thousands tried to load tens of thousands. Orbital elevators, never meant to operate at full capacity for more than a few hours, ran continuously. Parents held children as they pushed toward departing vessels. The elderly were left behind, accepting their fate so the young might live. The human fleet arrived on schedule. The Vrexian defense platforms opened fire, destroying ship after ship, but there were too many. Nuclear fire bloomed across Vrex Prime's orbit as the human vessels detonated themselves, some hitting their targets, others simply releasing their payloads into decaying orbits. Tholrek watched from a command ship in high orbit, forced to witness the death of his world. Mushroom clouds rose across 3 continents. Cities that had stood for 10,000 cycles vanished in seconds. The defense platforms themselves were targeted and destroyed. When it was over, Vrex Prime's atmosphere was choked with radioactive dust. Its cities were rubble. Its people were dead or dying. 2.7 billion Rexians gone. In one attack. Because Thalrek had thought humans would be reasonable, but the humans were not finished. Reports came in from across Concordate space. The Kethran homeworld attacked. The Sauric core colonies burning. The Pelthine trade hub destroyed. The humans had identified every important world in the Concordate and struck them simultaneously. They had hidden fleets for cycles preparing for this moment, waiting until they could deliver maximum devastation. The Concordate Council, what remained of it, convened in a hidden bunker on a minor world. Representatives appeared via hologram, their homeworlds too dangerous to leave. Thalrek stood before them, ready to accept whatever judgment they delivered. The Mycolian speaker, ancient Mixen who had warned against the war from the beginning, addressed him. Ambassador Thalrek, you led us into this catastrophe. 4 of the 7 Concordate species face extinction. The humans have destroyed 43 worlds completely. Hundreds more are damaged beyond recovery. What do you have to say? Thalrek's pattern showed only sorrow and resignation. I miscalculated. I thought military superiority would force surrender. I did not understand that humans see surrender as worse than death. I did not understand that they have been preparing for hostile first contact since they first achieved spaceflight. I did not understand that they would sacrifice everything, accept mutual destruction rather than submit to us. And now we must accept that we cannot win this war. The humans are willing to burn the galaxy down and we are not. They have already lost billions. They will accept losing billions more. We cannot match that willingness to sacrifice. We must retreat, hide, scatter our populations to make them harder to target, and hope the humans are satisfied with what they have destroyed. The Haxor representative, a scarred warrior who had lost 3 worlds, growled his agreement. The Dominion withdraws from Concordate space. We will defend our remaining colonies, but we will engage humans no further. This war is lost. One by one, the other species agreed. The Concordate, 12,000 cycles old, collapsed in a single session. Each species retreating to defend what little remained of their territory, each species hoping the humans would not pursue them into the darkness. Thalrek issued his final order as ambassador. All Concordate forces retreat from human space. Abandon all forward positions. Do not engage human vessels unless directly attacked. Send a message to Earth and all human colonies. We surrender. We will withdraw. We ask only that they stop the killing. The message was sent. 3 days later, a response came back. It was short. Withdraw beyond the barrier zone. Enter human space again, and there will be no mercy. We did not start this war, but we will end it. The Concordate obeyed. They had no choice. Zixil had been born 300 cycles after the war ended, on a world so far from the old Concordate territories that the war was nothing but legend to her generation. She was a Pelthine, her species having survived better than most, and she had dedicated her life to archaeology. The past fascinated her. The ruins called to her. Now at the age of 40 cycles, she floated in the observation dome of her research vessel, looking at what remained of Rex Prime. The planet hung in space like a scarred monument to folly. Its atmosphere had cleared over the centuries, but the surface remained mostly dead. Radiation levels had dropped to survivable ranges only in the past 50 cycles. Her assistant, a young Pelthine named Dor-Al, drifted beside her. Are you certain about this, Scholar Zixil? The ruined sector is forbidden. If the humans are still out there, we have detected no human activity in 300 cycles, Zixil said, though she understood the fear. Every spacefaring species told stories about the humans, the vengeful ghosts of the old war, the species so terrible they had nearly ended all life in the galaxy. And I have obtained proper authorization. The new council wants to know what really happened. They want the truth, not the legends. The research vessel, small and unarmed, descended through Vrex Prime's thin atmosphere. The landing site was a city that ancient records called Carthax, once home to 50 million Vrexians. Now it was rubble and rust. Buildings collapsed into streets, nature slowly reclaiming what little organic material remained. Zixil and her team exited the vessel wearing full environmental suits, though they were probably unnecessary. The radiation was low enough. The air was breathable, if thin, but protocol demanded caution in the ruins sector. They began their survey using ground-penetrating scanners to locate intact structures beneath the surface. Zixel had done this before on other dead worlds, but Vrex Prime was special. This was where the war had truly turned. This was where both sides had crossed the line from which there was no return. On the third day of excavation, they found it. A bunker buried under 30 meters of collapsed buildings. The entrance was sealed but not destroyed. Zixel's team carefully cut through the door, revealing a darkness that had been undisturbed for centuries. Inside, they found bodies. Phyrexian civilians killed by the initial blast wave, their shells cracked and their organic parts long since turned to dust. Zixel documented everything respectfully, aware that these were the victims of a war they had not started and could not prevent. Deeper in the bunker, they found something more valuable than bodies. A data storage facility, its power cells somehow still holding a charge. Zixel's manipulator tentacles trembled as she interfaced with the ancient systems. If this contained what she hoped, the data streamed into her portable terminal. Military logs, civilian reports, personal journals, and most importantly, a complete record of Ambassador Thalrek's command logs from the beginning of the war until the fall of Rex Prime. Zixel read through the night, her team sleeping in shifts while she absorbed the horror of what had happened. She read Thalrek's initial confidence, his certainty that humans would be reasonable. She read his growing confusion as the war went wrong. She read his despair as he realized he had doomed his species. One entry recorded the day before Vrex Prime fell struck her deeply. I have spent these past cycles reviewing human history and psychology. I now understand what we did. We encountered a species whose entire evolutionary history taught them that submission equals death. When their ancestors faced extinction, they did not accept it. They fought, they adapted, they survived. For 4 million cycles, anything that tried to dominate humanity was destroyed or driven back. It is in their genetic memory, their cultural memory, their individual psychology. We appeared in their space and demanded surrender. We might as well have asked them to stop breathing. They could not have reacted any other way. We created this war by fundamentally misunderstanding who they were. But that is not the full story. I have also discovered something else. The humans were preparing for this. Not for war with us specifically, but for war with someone. When they first achieved spaceflight, their scientists and philosophers debated the nature of first contact. They created scenarios, war plans, contingencies. They called it the first contact problem. What if the aliens are hostile? What if they are more advanced? What if they want to destroy us? Their answer was to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. They scattered their colonies to make themselves harder to destroy. They researched weapons that could threaten more advanced civilizations. They created plans for asymmetric warfare. They made it clear through all their transmissions into space that they desired peace, but would wage total war if threatened. We saw the transmissions. We saw the messages of greeting and friendship. We did not see the guns they were holding behind their backs, hoping never to use them. We forced them to draw those guns, and now we all pay the price. Zixel found herself releasing spores of mourning, a peltine expression of grief. Thalrek had understood at the end, but understanding had come too late. She continued her expedition across Vrex Prime and then to other dead worlds. The Kethrin homeworld, its oceans boiled away by orbital bombardment. The Sauric capital, where biological weapons had left the cities intact, but every living thing dead. The Haxor warrior moon, destroyed by a relativistic impact that had cracked the planetoid in half. On each world, she found the same story. Civilians caught in a war they did not understand, killed by weapons they had never imagined. The Concordat had waged war on humanity. Humanity had waged war on everything. On a human colony world called New Harmony, she found something different. The world was alive but empty. The humans had evacuated during the initial battle and never returned. Buildings stood intact, weathered by time but recognizable. And in the central square of the capital city, she found a monument. It was a simple stone pillar 3 meters tall, with text carved in human writing and galactic standard. Her translator rendered it. Here stood New Harmony, first human world attacked by alien aggression. 3,000 of our people died defending their homes. 3 million escaped to carry on the fight. We did not want this war. We begged for peace. We were answered with weapons. So we showed them what humanity becomes when cornered. We showed them the price of threatening our survival. We do not celebrate what we did. We do not glory in the deaths we caused, but we will not apologize for refusing to kneel. If others come after the Concordat, let them read this and understand. Humanity will not submit. Ever. We will accept friendship. We will accept peace. But we will never accept chains. Zixel recorded the monument and added it to her growing archive. She visited 40 dead worlds over 3 cycles of research. She documented the ruins of 7 civilizations. She pieced together the final days of the war. The Concordat had collapsed after Vrex Prime fell. The surviving populations scattered to hidden colonies, hoping to escape human vengeance. The humans had pursued them for another 2 cycles, hunting down every military target they could find. Then abruptly the human attacks had stopped. Not because humanity had won, because they had exhausted themselves. The war had cost humanity dearly. 8 billion dead, 30 colony worlds destroyed, their economy shattered, their fleet reduced to a fraction of pre-war strength. They had won, but victory had nearly destroyed them. The final human transmission to the galaxy, sent 50 cycles after the war began, was brief. Humanity withdraws to our borders. We claim the territory we have taken. We will defend it against all threats. We seek no further conflict, but we will remember what was done to us, and we will be ready if it happens again. After that, silence. 300 cycles of silence. No human ships had been seen beyond their borders. No human transmissions detected. They had walled themselves off from the galaxy, content to remain in isolation, or perhaps they were still there, watching, waiting, ready to respond if anyone else made Tholrek's mistake. Zixel completed her research and compiled her findings into a comprehensive report. She included the facts, the numbers, the timeline of atrocities committed by both sides, but she also included the context, the why, the how, the terrible, avoidable mistakes that had led to mutual destruction. She titled her report, "The Species That Would Not Kneel, A Complete History of the Human Concordat War." Before submitting it to the new council, she added one final note. This war should never have happened. It began with arrogance and ignorance. It escalated because neither side understood the other. It ended with ruins because both sides were willing to destroy everything rather than back down. Let this report serve as a warning. First contact requires wisdom, patience, and above all, respect. The Concordat forgot this. Humanity made them remember. May we never need to learn this lesson again. The new Galactic Council chamber looked nothing like the old Concordat Hall. It was smaller, more modest, built by species who had learned humility through suffering. Only 5 species had survived the war in sufficient numbers to maintain spacefaring civilizations. 3 others had been reduced to pre-industrial populations, clinging to survival on their few remaining worlds. 2 had gone extinct. Zixel stood before the council representatives, her research compiled into a holographic presentation that hung in the air above the assembly. She had spent the past cycle organizing her findings, verifying every fact, preparing for this moment. The truth of the human war, as it was now called, needed to be told. The council speaker, a Mycolian descended from Scholar Mixon's network, released spores that translated as formal greeting. Scholar Zixel of the Peltine Archives, you have spent 3 cycles researching the Forbidden Ruins. You have documented what remains of the war. We are prepared to hear your findings. Zixel activated her presentation. Images of dead worlds appeared, statistics of destruction, timelines of battles. But she did not start with the horrors. She started with the beginning. The war started with a vote, she began. 7 species decided that humanity posed a threat. They were not entirely wrong. Humanity was aggressive, expansionist, and heavily armed. But the Concordat misunderstood what those traits meant. They saw danger. They did not see desperation. She pulled up images of Earth, pre-contact humanity, their history of survival against impossible odds. Humanity evolved on a death world. Their planet tried to kill them repeatedly. Ice ages, megavolcanoes, plagues, predators. Most species would have gone extinct. Humanity adapted. They survived by being too stubborn to die. This created a psychology fundamentally different from ours. The council listened as she explained the human concept of liberty or death, their cultural horror of submission, their preparation for hostile first contact. She showed them Tholrek's logs, his growing understanding of what he had unleashed. Ambassador Tholrek believed military superiority would force compliance. Zixel continued. He was wrong. Humans do not think in terms of acceptable losses. They think in terms of acceptable sacrifices. They were willing to sacrifice everything. including their own survival rather than submit. The Concordat was not willing to match that sacrifice, so the Concordat lost. A Haxor representative, a species that had once prided itself on warrior culture, spoke. Are you suggesting the Concordat should have fought harder? Should have matched human ruthlessness? No, Zixil said firmly. I am suggesting the war should never have happened. The Concordat had the power to destroy humanity, but not the will. Humanity had the will to die fighting, but not the power to win cleanly. So both sides destroyed each other. The real lesson is simpler. Do not threaten a species that prefers death to submission unless you are willing to commit genocide. And if you are willing to commit genocide, you are the villain, not them. The chamber fell silent. It was one thing to study the war academically. It was another to state the truth so bluntly. Zixil pressed on. My research is complete. I have documented everything. The Concordat's arrogance, humanity's ferocity, the atrocities committed by both sides. I recommend this information be preserved and taught to all spacefaring species. It must become required reading for anyone involved in first contact protocols. And what of humanity? Asked the Peltine Council member. Your report says they survived, though damaged. Are they still out there? Unknown, Zixil admitted. They withdrew to their borders 300 cycles ago and have not been seen since. They may have recovered and are watching us. They may have collapsed entirely. They may have evolved beyond the need for external contact. Or, she paused, considering her next words carefully, or they may be waiting to see if someone else makes the Concordat's mistake. A young Kethran diplomat, born long after the war, raised a question. If we encounter humans again, what should we do? Treat them with respect, Zixil said immediately. Offer friendship, not demands. Trade, not ultimatums. Remember that they are a species that has survived everything their universe threw at them. They are not to be threatened. But they are not monsters either. Before the war, human transmissions spoke of peace and cooperation. They wanted friends among the stars. We gave them enemies instead. The council debated for hours after Zixil's presentation ended. Some argued her report was too sympathetic to humanity, that it did not sufficiently condemn their use of weapons the Concordat considered unthinkable. Others argued it was too harsh on the Concordat, that it failed to acknowledge legitimate concerns about human expansion. In the end, the council voted to accept her report and add it to the official historical record. It would be taught in schools, shown to diplomats, and included in first contact training. The human war would become the cautionary tale that shaped galactic policy for generations. But acceptance of the report was not universal. Some species, particularly those who had lost the most, rejected the idea that the Concordat bore primary responsibility. They told different stories, ones where humanity were monsters who had attacked without provocation. These false narratives spread in some sectors, particularly those far from the ruins. Zixil found herself traveling the galaxy, giving lectures, correcting misinformation. She became the foremost expert on the human war, her name synonymous with the truth of what had happened. It was exhausting work, but necessary. The lies had to be countered. The lessons had to be learned. Then, 50 cycles after her initial report, something happened that changed everything. A trading vessel in the outer sectors picked up a signal. It was faint, distant, but unmistakable. Human language. A transmission from deep space, from beyond the old borders where humanity had withdrawn. The message was simple. This is the human exploration vessel Perseverance. We are on a peaceful mission to study local stellar phenomena. We mean no harm to any species we encounter. If you receive this message, please respond. We would welcome contact. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity had returned. Or perhaps they had never left, just watched and waited, testing whether the younger species had learned wisdom. The council convened an emergency session. Zixil was called to advise. The question before them was simple but terrifying. How should they respond? Some advocated silence. Do not poke the sleeping predator. Others suggested a military response. Strike first before humanity could rebuild their war machine. Zixil listened to the arguments with growing frustration until she could no longer remain silent. You are making the same mistake the Concordat made, she said, her spores releasing sharp rebuke. You are seeing humans as a threat instead of as people. They sent an exploration vessel, not a warship. They offered peace, not demands. They are giving us a chance to do this right. And if it is a trick? The Haxo representative demanded. If they are testing our defenses? Then we will have lost nothing by offering friendship, Zixil replied. But if we respond with fear or hostility, we will prove that the galaxy learned nothing from the war. We will prove that humanity was right to isolate themselves. Is that what you want? The council debated for 3 days. Finally, they voted. The response would be peaceful, cautious but peaceful, an invitation to dialogue, not a threat. The message was sent. Human vessel Perseverance. This is the Galactic Council of Successor Species. We have received your transmission. We welcome peaceful contact. We acknowledge the mistakes of the past and seek to build a better future. If you are willing, we would like to establish diplomatic communication. Zixil volunteered to be part of the first contact team. If humanity responded, if they agreed to meet, she wanted to be there. She had spent her life studying the war. She deserved to see the peace. The response came 3 weeks later. Galactic Council, this is Captain Maria Santos of the Perseverance. We are authorized by the Human Federal Assembly to initiate contact. We propose a meeting at neutral coordinates. We will send 2 representatives unarmed. We hope you will do the same. The meeting was arranged. A small station in neutral space, with representatives from both sides and absolutely no weapons permitted. Zixil was chosen as one of the council's representatives, along with a Mycolian diplomat. The humans sent Captain Santos and a civilian historian named Dr. James Chen. When the airlock opened and the humans stepped through, Zixil felt a moment of primal fear. These were the species that had destroyed the Concordat. These were the apex predators of legend. But then she looked at them, really looked, and saw past the legend to the reality. They were small, fragile-looking compared to most spacefaring species. They moved with caution, their body language carefully non-threatening. Captain Santos extended her hand in a gesture Zixil recognized from human cultural databases as a greeting. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Santos said, her translator rendering her words into standard galactic language. "We were not sure anyone would respond to our message." "Thank you for reaching out," Zixil replied, extending her tentacles in a Peltine gesture of respect. "We have learned much since the war. We hope you have as well."